Are you feeling blue, friends? Fear not, because Leigh and I are coming at you. We're returning to Pandora with our review of James Cameron's third chapter in his epic saga, Avatar: Fire and Ash. I'm Timmy Flynn, film expert.
And I'm Leigh Livingstone, entertainment journalist.
And we love to talk all things movies.
In Avatar: Fire and Ash, Jake and Neytiri's family grapples with grief after their son's death, encountering a new aggressive Na'vi tribe, the Ash people, who are led by the fiery Varang, as the conflict on Pandora escalates and a new moral focus emerges.
Avatar: Fire and Ash is directed by James Cameron from a screenplay and story by James Cameron, Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silva, with a story by Josh Friedman and Shane Salerno.
Fire and Ash stars Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, Oona Chaplin, Britton Dalton, Jack Champion, Trinity Jolie Bliss, Kate Winslet, Cliff Curtis, Edie Falco, Brendan Cowell and David Thewlis, among others.
Among many others in tribes and such like. It's been 3 years, Leigh, since we've been finally invited back to Pandora with Avatar: The Way of Water, which came out in 2022, but we had waited 13 years between Avatar and 2009 prior to that.
Yes, but it's only been a few weeks in the world of Pandora, though, since
Yes.
we last saw Jake and his family.
Exactly. So this almost feels like one big story, one big movie when you put it together between The Way of Water and Fire and Ash in a way. It's a continuation. I feel like the word sequel feels less appropriate for this movie. It just feels like one story. But The Way of Water, I think, would just highlight how the anticipatory nature of the second one. Is it going to be as good, as big, like financially? Well, it made $2.3 billion. So the world was ready to return to Pandora in 2022. And I do wonder if the world is as excited for Fire and Ash, right?
That's the question, isn't it? I think we are excited. I think I'm definitely was excited to return to the world. Yeah, but I did have pause over the 3 hour, 3 hour and 20 minutes?
15, 3 hours 15.
3 hours 15. It's the longest film out of the three. And yeah, and I thought, what more are they going to show us? And I was really excited to see that. Do you think they showed us more?
That is such a good question in how you framed it. Do you think they showed us more? My take on Fire and Ash is that they showed us pretty much the same stuff, just in a slightly different way. There was a lot of narrative repetition, plot point repetition.
Yes.
I actually think that like the story hasn't really progressed very much.
No.
Like the outcomes, the progression, the stakes have been high, but they've been at this like level, and we've kind of just played in that high stakes level from multiple angles for the last two movies.
It hits very similar beats in terms of the action and how the story is propelled forward. It is a different story because obviously, as we said, this story is anchored in unresolved grief rather than, a narrative reset. So it's all about the emotional fault line of the Sully family and how they're dealing with this death. It's more about culture clashing with duty and the ongoing battle. The humans are still there trying to colonize the planet. That's the less interesting part of this story, unfortunately. But it is meant to be the main thoroughfare of this world, is the colonization and the humans destroying clans and destroying Pandora for their own benefit. But that aspect definitely took a back seat.
Yes.
To its detriment, or do we care? That's the question.
I think to its detriment, actually, because if you break it down like this, the first film was about the colonization of Pandora from naughty humans, but the discovery of the Na'vi people and Jake Sully, like from marine to converted, right? The second one, the humans, the sky people as they're called, they come back and they're trying to get more of the good stuff out of the world of Pandora. Then Avatar: Fire and Ash, they're still trying to get the good stuff out of the world of Pandora, and they're not listening, and they're very obnoxious, and they're violent, and just fucking no peripheral vision or care for the beauty of nature and people. even though, yes, it may not be the focus of this film at its heart, it is the same damn beat that's shown up in now 3 movies, and it hasn't really progressed.
The big battle against the humans.
Totally. Like, again.
Except this time there is another clan involved.
There is another clan involved, that's
There's
right.
another couple of clans involved, actually. They introduce us to 2 new clans in the form of the Wind Traders and the Ash People.
I found the Wind Trade, in terms of the world building of this movie, I think that it does that very successfully.
Yes, it always does, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the immersion of Pandora is second to none. The clans, the creatures, the connectiveness to Aowa and that deity is explored in really profound ways in this movie. The thing that made me disappointed, though, about the introduction of 2 clans is that, yes, the Ash People we'll talk about after this, but the Wind Traders are in the film for but a moment, and they're so interesting and compelling, and then we never see them again. Yeah. And I was really disappointed by that.
They are as they're described in the press notes, they are a nomadic, apolitical clan.
They do
that's
touch
the right
on that.
Terminology.
They're like Switzerland of Pandora.
Yes, exactly. Switzerland of Pandora in the air.
In the air.
So they're just kind of floating around up there in the air. They're more interested in trade and commerce.
Yeah, okay.
Than the religion and what's going on below them, the war that's going on below them.
Which is quite interesting, but I guess, I mean, was there a deleted scene where the leader of that clan was like, nah, let's just catch the wind and go south. Let's just avoid the scenario that's going on over there.
If you read the production notes, which we have obviously just to get a deeper insight into this film, James Cameron positions it as less of a forward sprint, it's described, and more of an inward reckoning. So this is a very, very personal story about Jake and his family and how they're dealing with the aftershocks of that big war and how the loss has like fractured them as a family and their faith and their identities, especially with Neytiri, who's really, really shaken by the loss and of course, and reckoning with her faith and how she feels about her own family, her own blended family, because she really hates the sky people. She really hates the humans. And of course, they have a human living with them as an adopted child in the form of Spider.
Neytiri's quite hard, and I would say she's a bit dark in this film, grappling with how she wants to nurture and mother her family, and where the spider is part of that equation. So it's quite abrupt and jarring in her position, because you think that she may have another idea. But yeah, she is actually in so much pain in this film, isn't she?
She is, and that is an interesting aspect of this story and a real anchor point. But it's also the point that I felt fell down a little, not with Neytiri, but particularly with the scenes with Spider and how quickly they move through that pain point, I guess, of like that's a really interesting thing to be almost, I don't want to say hating, because that's too strong a word, but to be really questioning your love for your family, if that's what she was doing. Not necessarily questioning love, but do you know where I'm going with this? It's
Absolutely.
she sort of has a moment where she goes, oh, wait a minute, like my family is human in some way. But then there's a point towards like maybe the second half of the film where they rush through the resolution of all of that. And I was disappointed in that, and I was disappointed in the dialogue that went along with that. The acting that went along with that too was a bit disappointing. It fell flat for me.
Something comes to a head in a really, really big way in this moment, which we won't sort of reveal, because we want you to experience and enjoy this when you go see it at the movies on the biggest, loudest screen you can find.
It's a really dramatic turning point in the film. Like, it's really tense. You want to know what's about to happen. And then it just zooms through it.
It just zooms. And I feel like there were less beats leading up to the decision that was ultimately being made. The little asides that make them arrive at a point. And then I don't know whether it was just the clunkiness of that whole situation. I think it was part of the coverage and the editing.
Yeah, there was something in the editing there, because there were a couple of scenes that ended very abruptly.
Yes. And look, this film for me felt incredibly unfocused, and the pacing over that 3 hours, 15 minutes, I actually felt like I don't have a huge issue with the length of movies, and I didn't with The Way of Water, which was 3 hours, 12 minutes. So this movie's only 3 minutes longer than the previous one, right? But I felt like just to your point about scenes that would just come and go really quickly, felt very like, oh, okay, that feels so obvious that something that was said or that we were shown in that just little flash is important. Remember that, because it's going to play a part, in 2 or 3 scenes time or in half an hour's time. And that felt very uneven because they had so many fucking subplot balls in the air.
Yeah.
And they simply couldn't catch them all. And it was really like, it was very jarring as an audience member, actually.
I think unfocused is the right word to use. Yeah, like because there's so many things going on, especially with Stephen Lang's villain Quaritch. That feels sidelined and rushed to a point. Like there's some development that goes on with him that's also quite interesting. Like it
is quite interesting.
I mean, it's ground we've covered before in
Yes.
terms of Jake, but it was interesting, and it was all of a sudden like he was showing up in different ways, and you're like, how did he get there? How did he become that? Like, and if you read the press notes, you can see that they wanted this evolution for him where he starts to become ideologically obsessed, like he starts to become a revenant rather than he's moved on from the humans and their plight to take over Pandora. He's got his own sort of driving factor now.
Totally. Yeah, he becomes his own leader in a way, party of one.
Yes. But that, along with, Loic's little side journey about finding his place in the family after the death of his brother and the Tulkun and bringing them together, those magnificent whale-like creatures.
Yeah, beautiful.
Those scenes in particular felt like they were edited to within an inch of their life. And so they would cut off really quickly. And it was like all of a sudden he was gone and he was going somewhere and he was doing something. And you're like, What?
Yeah.
How did we get there?
James Cameron has said in like the lead up to the release of this film in some interviews and podcasts and such like, and he screened the film for executives at Disney, and the film was like 3 hours 20 something, or 3 hours at 3.5 hours. And Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney, was like, I know you're still tweaking some stuff, but like no notes from me. You shut down some notes. And I'm like, what was in those extra 15 minutes? I feel like this film, even though it was hellishly way too long, it's just going to sound so weird. It kind of needed another 20 minutes to fill some gaps, I think, and just the pacing and the unfocused layers of the story, like those scenes that you were saying with Loak,
Or leave some things for another film.
Exactly.
That's going to bring me to another point that I want to make about this film is that do you think we'll get another film?
Oh, 100%.
But this felt like a good ending point. Like if James Cameron changes his mind, and he has said this all the way through, he has said that he has 5 planned, but that he will stop at 3 if he feels like it. And I think the ending of this film actually felt like a pretty good place to stop. It doesn't resolve everything.
Yeah, which I fucking hate.
Do you?
Because I disagree with you, which is so interesting.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm like, they're definitely making another one. The way that they, quote unquote, wrapped this up and left you not hanging, but leaning in for there is more story to tell here.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. I felt very strongly that. I was like, it felt rushed. And I was like, you bastards. Like you're saying, we may not make another one, la, 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 la. And it's like, psych, there'll be another one, guys. You have to wait 4 years. Like 100%.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
As long as it's not more of the same. Like where can they take this story?
I can't promise you that.
I mean, they can, the world building, we'll move into that, but the world building is incredible. Like the talent behind this film and the creativity, like all the artists that are involved creating these creatures, these clans, they continue to expand the Pandora world horizontally rather than vertically, as they say, adding all these different ideological cultures in, and instead of just new terrain, we're seeing, like the wind traders, we're seeing the ash people.
We're seeing more creatures, in and around the ocean and the air, but all these creatures, which I really admire about the world building of this series, is that they all serve a purpose, because there is that connective tissue between them and the culture of the Na'vi people and also Iowa as their deity. So I think they nail that in this film.
What I'm saying is if they're going to give us more films, they need to offer more than just a new tribe and some new creatures.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like they did that in this film and felt like that was enough.
I've read that. I don't know if it's planned for Avatar 4 or 5, but at some point within the next two films, the story is going to shift to Earth. So we're going to be introduced to what Earth in this world actually operates and looks like, and what that means for this progression of the story and these characters.
Well, that's interesting because that'll give us something new to build on. But in terms of the story, it really needs to move on a bit.
Yes. Well, without spoiling anything, I really feel like that there was a particular character in this. I could say like Spider becomes a bigger focus in this film. Yeah. And I actually think that there's something there with his character and his relationship with Pandora and the other Na'vi people that's going to be explored. That's all I'll say.
That was an interesting point in this film, and how important he is to the war on both sides. Yeah, that was interesting, and I also really did like how they explored Aowa, but they moved into the territory very dangerously, I might say. I got a little nervous where we almost caught a glimpse of the deity.
Well, we did.
But we did. What did you think of that?
I don't know. I was kind of scared. I don't know.
And I kind of thought, where are they going with this? It felt a bit Moana.
Right. Okay. I see what you mean.
That's not going to make sense until everyone sees the film.
Until you see it. Yeah. I found that really interesting. But with Kiri, which is Sigourney Weaver's character, the second character that she plays in this series, I found that interesting, and they have been building to this crescendo over the last two movies there, and I don't know whether they successfully arrived where I needed them to arrive.
They had to rush that explanation too.
Everything's rushed. Everything is unfocused in this film.
And it was a bit confusing to me.
Yes, but see, this is why I'm like, they're going to keep making movies because ambiguity is a beautiful thing in art because it's over to you, but I actually think there are answers in this world and they're waiting to be, revealed to us. And I was kind of annoyed that they withheld certain answers still.
Do you think we needed some flashbacks? Do you think we needed some reminders? Like, it has been quite a long time since the previous film. And yes, of course, you go back and you watch the previous film before you go and see the next one. But it's interesting that this film is the kind of film where they really trust their audience to know this world and be in this world with them, which is wonderful. That's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
But at the same time, I found myself at points going, what happened again in this film? Like, there's a lot to remember. There's a lot of detail and there's a lot of things going on, as we said.
Yes.
Could a well-timed flashback or a well-timed bit of narration have helped reposition us back in this world?
Let's unpack that because I think that is a really great question that I hadn't thought of, because the tool of flashbacks, it is a fine line, right?
Yeah.
I can use two examples where it's being used well and used to death and terribly to its detriment. We talked about this. The latest Mission Impossible film lent so heavily into flashbacks to tell you the reason why the story is progressing, and it was so hammy and so ridiculous, and a lot of it was reconning it. I'm watching Stranger Things at the moment, season 5, and even in season 4, they do very tastefully, helpfully, narratively flashback to things that happen to connect stuff between seasons, and I think that's done very, very well. They do it often, but it's used to assist you in connecting those dots. So I do wonder, your question, could have Avatar Fire and Ash benefited from some of that treatment? And I actually think it could have.
But there's so much to fit in that
there's so much to fit
that in either.
Yeah. You mentioned the narration. How did you feel about shifting between Jake Sully being the narrator of the first two films and then it shifting to Loak here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that was successful either, because
no, I don't think so.
At one point I thought it was the deceased brother, because some things happen in the film to do with their religion and culture and Aowa and stuff where I actually did think that he was talking to them.
Yeah. I actually think that the comings and goings of the narration from, I guess, maybe a sound design perspective, but then clearly positioning us in whether we are receiving dialogue in the scene or voiceover in the ether, I don't think that was that successful every time. And I found myself confused about who was talking to who, whether it was the audience or a character within the frame. Yeah.
That comes back to the dialogue being a little undercooked.
Yes, that's James Cameron for you, though. His dialogue never really wins awards.
Why am I surprised? There's also a line like, I don't want to spoil it or anything. Like, this won't spoil anything, but there's a moment where Sigourney Weaver's character, Kiri, says a very familiar line.
Indeed.
In a different way. They've made it different enough, but it's similar enough that it breaks this carefully crafted world. And it's hard enough to lean into Sigourney Weaver flirting with a teenage boy or however old Spider is. Like, because remember, it's not the voice of Sigourney, it is Sigourney. Like, James Cameron has said that many times. It's not voiced by Sigourney Weaver. This is Sigourney Weaver doing the performance. So when you think about that, it does make you just slightly uncomfortable that she's, calling Monkey Boy. She's calling Spider Monkey Boy and having this big flirt with him. And then she comes out with this line.
It's very on the nose.
Very famous line, a very Sigourney Weaver line. And it is very on the nose. Yeah, it took me right out of it.
And it doesn't actually align with her character in this film. So it felt incredibly abrasive, I guess. I don't know, use another word. Like, I got a little kick out of it, but I was like, hold on a minute, that doesn't belong here.
No, it's like a funny little wink to the audience.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that in these films.
No.
That's not what these films are about. These films are fully immersive and they should be.
Do you know what? There's actually a scene where it almost felt beat for beat like a moment in Titanic where the Sully clan are leaving the Water clan, Kate Winslet and his family, and Spider's running with the kids and waving over the side of the ship back at the clan. And I'm like, that's Leo and his mate leaving the dock in Ireland on the Titanic. Like, it really, really felt like that. So it all makes sense, which I think that works better than the moment that you have referenced in terms of a little nod to the filmography of James Cameron. But here we are.
At this point, can the films avoid becoming formulaic? we want more. We want more. Of course we want more. But the fatigue does start to set in. We're in 3 movies in now. And is it enough to just give us a new clan and some new creatures every time?
Yeah.
Are people going to be satisfied with that? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the result to that answer is how much money it brings in. I know that sounds really cynical, but Avatar Way of Water brought in 2.3, Avatar brought in 2.9. You know, is this a $2 billion film, or will people think that they've seen it all before and they won't keep going back to watch it multiple viewings? Because that's how these movies make so much money, because people watch them more than once, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good question to ask.
And I think they've said that at the beginning of the film, they're going to be playing Doomsday trailers, but there'll be a different version ahead of
4 different versions. Yeah.
4 different versions. So you have to keep going to see the film to get the Doomsday trailer.
I've already seen content creators or influencers or whatever you want to call them do clips of them, me watching Avatar Fire and Ash, and they're sitting in the cinema, then the Doomsday trailer comes on and then it finishes and then they leave the cinema. Like, they don't stay to watch Avatar. So we're just here for the Doomsday trailers.
Yeah. Backfired marketing. Let's talk about the characters and dive into that, because there are some new characters that are worth talking about. We'll start with, of course, Sam Worthington as Jake Sully, the hero, if you like, of the entire series.
Yeah.
He is retreating back into his military background.
Definitely.
He's reverting into instinct and command rather than empathy after losing his son. Yeah, it's a survival tactic, I guess.
Look, I don't have much to say about Jake Sully because, and I say this with, as much kindness as possible, but, Sam Worthington isn't he's not an actor who brings much gravitas to his performances. And I have always found it a bit hard to connect with his performance with Jake.
Right,
I mean, like, as an archetype, I understand and you can get along. But there was something about him constantly referring to himself as a Marine that really irritated me because like he hasn't been a Marine for so long. Like I just feel like he's unable to move on to the fact that he is like a Marine and a warrior, but I don't know, maybe that works here.
No, I was looking for some progression from that actually. Like there's a regression into that, but I wanted some progression in the sense that he might be letting go of that side of himself, because we saw it in the last film that he runs his family like a military operation.
That's right, yeah.
Yep. And then he's doing the exact same thing in here, and I thought, have you learned nothing from the loss of your son? And the fact that Loic is looking to you for acceptance.
And he's still a bit of a dick to him, like a big dick. You know, paired with that scenario, what I actually did find interesting about Sam's performance, like Jake versus Zoe Saldana as Neytiri, was that as parents, they didn't feel like an aligned unit as much in this movie. And there was some conflict of thought where they had to really work through the conversations in their marriage to come to decisions about how they were to parent their kids, if that makes sense. I found that interesting.
Yeah, and then you've got Zoe Saldana's Neytiri, who is her most volatile and violent and spiritually like shaken.
Yeah.
And as we said, her grief kind of curdles into this resentment, especially towards Spider. And then it creates one of the film's most uncomfortable tensions. And I really wanted them to lean more into that because it seemed to be the central focus.
I was relieved that I think we commented on this in our review of The Way of Water, where Neytiri felt like a secondary character in that film, and I thought that was a mistake. In this one, she's given her dues a bit more. She's given more screen time, as superficial as that sounds, but she has more to do, more to say, more to feel, and more for the audience to connect with. So I was relieved that Zoe had a bit more to do in this film.
Yeah, yep. And she delivered. She really delivers. She's fantastic.
She's incredible. And, you know, outside of the emotional elements of her character, she is a fantastic warrior to watch interact and fight. Like, she's like, no one's better than her almost. She's one of the best.
Then we're introduced to Oona Chaplin's Varang, who really does stand out as the most psychologically complex antagonist. Unhinged. That was my polite way of saying unhinged. Antagonist to date. She's this, figure who's been shaped by catastrophe. Like, her clan has been decimated by a volcano, like this internal destruction of Pandora. Like, we've seen the humans come in and destroy Pandora, but there's also some internal natural destruction that's really shaken their spiritual beliefs, and they've moved into, I guess, spiritual extremism. They're the extremists.
Yeah, absolutely. They're on the extreme end of the spectrum, and even just how they live, you know, even the space that they co-inhabit is desolate and dark, and like, we're so used to Pandora being colorful and lots of blues and things like that, but the Ash people, it's not a pleasant place to visit. So visually and then emotionally, they are in sync. She was the best part of this movie. I think I loved her character, and her performance was just wicked. It was fantastic.
It was really, really fantastic. Like, just so sinister and sexy. And
yes, it was a very horny Avatar movie.
I was about to say, I think I saw someone describe it as a very horny Avatar movie.
Which, like, I'm here for. I mean, I guess people fuck on Pandora. Like, let's lean into it from time to time.
But it's still Disney, so we never actually see anything saucy.
Them laying and that longing and that kind of like, that animalistic horniness as well between certain characters, which we won't share. But
no.
I thought she was a great vessel to really understand the Ash people.
Yeah.
You know, there's a Na'vi tribe who are quote unquote evil or, you know, disenfranchised, and so it's not that positiveness and that connectiveness to Earth, because there is that. Where was Iowa when our people were being killed? Yeah. So there's that, you know, resentment to a deity that people put up on a pedestal, and they carve out their own way of existing and living, and whether it aligns with the other tribes is where that interesting part lays.
And there's that interesting parallel as well with, you know, like the Sky People or the humans coming in and introducing them to their weapons. And whereas most of the Na'vi people shun that because that's not their way, and also anything to do with the Sky People is evil, so therefore their weapons will poison their minds and all that sort of stuff. But the Ash people are like, what's that gun do? Oh, shoots fire? Oh, I like that.
Yeah. What does she call it? She calls it, I want the thunder, which which is
Yeah.
the guns, which I loved.
Yeah. Loak, as we mentioned, Britton Dalton's character, he is the narrative lens of the film, internalizing his guilt over the death of his brother. And he's, not really rebellious, I would say. Like, it's hard to describe what he's doing in this film. He's trying to find his way. He's trying to find acceptance from his parents.
I see the intention behind bringing Loak as the narrator of this film, but we've said I don't think it works. I think it should have just stuck with Jake. You know, the work of Britton here is good, but the film is distracted by so many other things. His arc and his emotional darkness that he is grappling with, it's not earned for the audience. It does. We don't spend enough time with him to really arrive at some of these decisions that he makes, which is a real shame because I think there's a really amazing performance in there, but it gets distracted by other things.
And it comes down to that progression too, that you don't see a lot of progression in it because he keeps doing the same thing and you're like, mate, he's interrupting another council meeting. He's speaking out when he shouldn't.
They're the narrative beats, that the repetition that is very frustrating, and a lot of it actually unfairly lies with Loak, like the things that you've just mentioned. He keeps making silly, dumb decisions. You kind of want him to progress and move on and have a win. And I think that win comes far too late into the piece, and you're kind of more frustrated with him than on his side.
Stephen Lang's Quaritch is back, although in a lesser capacity, I think.
I don't know, maybe same in a way.
I don't understand his character development.
It sort of shifts
jarring.
and yo-yos. It
It's
yo-yos
jarring.
a lot, yeah.
I find it really jarring. I find his obsession with Spider confusing. Like they really rushed that towards the end of the second film.
Yes.
To make that climactic moment really hit hard.
Yeah.
And then in the third film, they're like, oh, well, we've got to continue that. But it just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make natural sense.
I really like his performance. I like him on screen and the places that he went and did. But the emotional core of it, his progression as a character, didn't feel complete. Yeah.
No. And it was an interesting choice to see him start to progress and do things differently, but they just didn't give it enough time. Like you said, it was all over the shop.
All over the shop.
Do we want to talk about Sigourney Weaver's Kiri just quickly? Because she is a major driving factor in this story. Her journey with Awa and trying to understand who she is and where she comes from. And obviously there's a big secret around. And I didn't realize it was a secret.
Well, not to us, which meant that it felt a bit of a moot point when they tell her like who she really is. And I'm like, yeah, guys, we know. Like it's
it was a big moment, and it was kind of, it fell a little flat because you go, oh wait, she didn't know that? Like I forgot that she didn't know that.
And it felt a bit like, you know, when you, it's going to sound weird, but you know when you like judge movie parents for not being truthful to their kids, and you're like, you could have avoided all of this inner turmoil for this poor girl if you'd just told her, like,
but
from
also,
the beginning.
why was it an issue?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm a bit confused about that, why it was such a huge thing.
Yeah. They didn't explain that
They
very
didn't
well,
explain
I
it very
guess.
well. Yeah.
Oh. Is there anyone else important that we want to talk about? There's so many characters in this film.
You know, David Thewlis as Palak in the Wind Tribe, he's excellent. I think just the only thing that I really want to call out for him is that I think his transfer from performance capture to being a Na'vi was absolutely beautiful and flawless. Like you could tell it was him, his mannerisms. I was like, wow, I was actually floored by.
I actually didn't know that was him. I had to look up who he played.
Oh, for real? Oh my God, that's so interesting.
Like, amazing, David Thewlis is in this. But yeah, and then I was like, hang on, who was he?
There is another character, Jack Champion as Spider. We've kind of peppered through conversations about him because he is a big part of the story. But he is a big focus of this film. I think he's a great young actor, and I'm excited to see what he does next. But there is something about his character that really bothers me, and it comes down to the dialogue that we've talked about. Bro, how many times these characters call each other bro? Like, I don't know. It is such an ick for me. I can't accept how many times they call each other bro in this movie. It drives me insane.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately in this film, Jack Champion didn't get a lot to work with, and also big emotional scenes and the pivotal scenes involving him fell flat.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And were rushed through. And so it was really hard to, like, I don't want to spoil it, but there is a moment, like a very climactic moment, a really hard moment that we've sort of touched on earlier with Jake and Neytiri and Spider and some things that have to be said and done. And he switches from one point of view to another so quickly.
Yes.
And I was like, what?
To the editing point that you made before, there are beats missing in that scene. Yeah. And you could tell it felt incomplete. And that's at the detriment to Jack's performance, which is a real shame.
Because that is such an important
it's huge
beat of the story. Yeah. Like that was so interesting. They were building up to that throughout the whole film. And then they just had to quickly rush by it because we need to get to the big battle.
We needed the third act battle, bro.
Bro. Let's quickly talk about the visual effects because you expect them to be out of this world, and of course they deliver. How did you're always really tuned into the VFX, so tell me,
Look, it is flawless. I always are in tune with the marriage or the relationship between the in-camera stuff and then the CGI and the extensions. And there is no better marriage between the two than in Avatar movies. Yeah. And somehow in this film, like even though 2 and 3 were filmed at the same time, there's been a 3-year, post-production gap between. And I can see the slight improvements on detail and nuance. Yes. And I'm like, how have they improved? How do they keep slightly improving?
Well, you know that James Cameron is an innovator. He's a filmmaking innovator, and that's what makes him one of the greats. And he's always insisted that Avatar films are not made by computers.
Yes.
As you said, it's an extension of what the actors are doing, the actor-driven realism, the emotional authenticity, not visual excess. The shot construction does come afterwards and is built in a computer, but so much of what they're doing is real and in camera. And I think that marriage, it just works really well. One thing I do want to point out that I was just blown away by, when the Tulkun, the big whale-like creatures, are having a council meeting and we actually meet bigger versions than we've seen previously, some elders, and the vibrations of the water on the ocean. Like, did you notice that? Like when they were talking, it was stunning. Yeah. So gorgeous.
It sounds so specific, but
that's what such a weird thing to point out. But
I love the vibrations.
Amazing.
But it's so true. It's like these films invite you into such minute detail that we just see and live and breathe and interact with in our world as humans. But in Avatar, it's like you get drawn to these details because they're so immersive and beautiful. So I love that experience for you.
Thank you.
Even though the action does feel repetitive, it is no less like astonishing and incredible and spectacular. There is one particular action sequence between 3 characters right at the end that did floor me horizontally, because just visually and how the blocking and how the fuck they pulled that off, I was like, Jesus Christ. So I was like, that was the moment for me in this movie where it took me somewhere else. And I was like, damn you, James Cameron, how do you keep doing this? Like, I did feel really like shook by that.
Do you know what's really funny and that we haven't mentioned, and I had like in big capital letter notes on my notebook,
Tell me.
That you say, damn James Cameron, how are you doing this? Well, another one of the greats was in our screening.
Holy shit. Yes.
George Miller. We're just like casually, there's George Miller sitting in front of us having a peek at James Cameron's work, and you got to wonder what someone like him thinks of it too. Like, I mean, he's one of the greats as well.
He's one of the greats. He, just for listener who may not know who George Miller is, he's an Australian filmmaker. He has made the Mad Max films. I mean, Mad Max Fury Road is one of the greatest films of all time. It's certainly from an action spectacle. He has made Lorenzo's Oil and Witches of Eastwick. I mean, the list goes on. He's an icon, and we shared the cinema with him. Like, we were like 2 kids in a candy store, but we're like, no, we have to be professional and adults here.
I think everyone was. Like, you could see the look on a couple of people's faces being like,
Yeah.
Is that George Miller? Did you just see that? That's George Miller right there. Oh my
and
God.
he's so distinctly George Miller. Like he's one of those creatives who has had the same look throughout his career, like the round dark glasses.
Yeah.
Does he have like the beads that connect the glasses? He has those, doesn't he? Yeah. Like librarian vibes, but filmmaker librarian.
Yeah. Yeah, so I always kind of wonder, like it would have been great to pick his brain afterwards and be like, what did you think of that?
I was tempted, but then I thought, I don't think it's appropriate at the same time.
Yeah.
But I really did want to, and I wonder if he will come out with any thoughts on the film. I'd love to read them.
I mean, we could talk about this film all day, Tim, but should we wrap up our review of Fire and Ash and let people go and experience for themselves?
Absolutely. Avatar Fire and Ash is an immersive feat of filmmaking. It is quite astonishing how these films continue to improve upon its predecessor in spectacle, CGI, and the flawless interaction with in-camera action. However, the progression of the story over the course of these films has barely edged towards anything substantial, choosing to repeat almost identical beats, scenarios, and plot points. Although it tries incredibly hard to explore deeply emotional layers, it falls short because it never feels earned and juggles endless high-stakes subplots, leaving the film unfocused.
Fire and Ash is a solid return to the world of Pandora, although the narrative is becoming formulaic and the dialogue a little tired and rushed. There's no denying that the incredible detail of this world remains visually breathtaking and always surprising. Could we do with another film? Perhaps, but it would also be a good place to leave it, in my opinion. And I think James Cameron knows that and might be hedging his bets a little.
Oh, definitely. He's not an idiot. All this stuff that he's saying around, I'm ready to walk away. It's like, bro, you're not ready to walk away. We're getting another one. If it makes another $2 billion, we're in.
Yeah. Avatar Fire and Ash is in Australian cinemas from December 18.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us as we tackled the biggest film of the year. We'll find out from a box office perspective in 2026. Avatar Fire and Ash, it's always a privilege to have you.
We'll catch you next time.
If you enjoy our episodes, make sure you're subscribed on your favourite podcast platform. It's free. While you're there, we would love you to rate us and leave a review.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Samsung Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Alexa, Overcast, Pocket Casts, and where all good podcasts are found.